very good afternoon and many thanks for joining us at this time. You're watching News Analysis live on Politics and Business TV. The top stories. Federal government says the tax revenue is currently the highest income source for the Federation. Minister of Marine and Blue Economy, Adefolarin Olamilekan, says Nigeria's fishing industry could take over from the oil sector if properly harnessed. Over 1 million Nigerians submit applications for consumer credit scheme. Details coming up shortly. Welcome back. I am Omoife Semere. Now, the federal government has charged tax practitioners to work harder in getting more revenue from taxes, stressing that tax revenue is currently the highest income source for the Federation. This was disclosed by the Accountant General of the Federation, Oluwatoyin Maiden, at the 26th Annual Tax Conference of the Chartered Institute of Tax. Recognized the immense contributions of fish trawler owners to the Nigerian economy in providing fish food nutrition, job creation, as well as economic growth. According to him, the meeting was to collectively chart the course in achieving sustainable development in the marine and blue economy, as well as deepening the rapport between the government and the stakeholders in the fishing trawlers business. He further said that President Bola Tinubu had established the ministry and its Department of Fisheries and Aquaculture to facilitate trade, with their presence signifying growth as well as progress in the fisheries sector. Let's now head on to labor matters, where the tripartite committee set up by the federal government will be meeting today for further deliberation on a decent minimum wage for Nigerians. This is as the labor unions stood their ground on their proposal of 615,000 naira minimum wage while maintaining the May 31st, 2024 deadline. The move is not unconnected to the failure of the federal government to present a nationally acceptable minimum wage to Nigerians following the expiration of the old minimum wage on April 18, 2024. It would be recorded that President Bola Tinubu had, through the Vice President Kashim Shettima, on January 30th, 2024, inaugurated a 37-member tripartite committee to come up with a new minimum wage, with its members cutting across federal and state government, the private sector, and the organized labor. Shettima had, during the committee's inauguration, which is chaired by the former head of the Civil Service of the Federation, Goni Aji, urged the members to speedily arrive at a resolution and submit their reports early. He stressed the need for collective bargaining in good faith, emphasizing contract adherence and encouraging consultations outside the committee. 3 weeks after its takeoff, the Managing Director and the Chief Executive Officer, Nigerian Consumer Credit Corporation, Uzoma Nwagba, said that over 1 million Nigerians have submitted applications for the consumer credit scheme. The credit scheme, according to media reports, is aimed at helping citizens access loans for important purchases. Nwagba said since the unveiling of the first phase in April by President Bola Tinubu, the volume of applications received so far have been overwhelming. He, however, assured of his preparedness to spearhead the current administration's drive to broaden consumer credit availability for interested working Nigerians. According to a statement by the Special Advisor to the President on Media and Publicity, Ajuri Ngalali, at its launch, the scheme is expected to achieve its mandate through the strengthening of Nigeria's credit reporting systems, ensuring every economically active citizen has a dependable credit score, promoting responsible consumer credit as a pathway to an improved quality of life, among others. Right, you're watching News Analysis live on Politics and Business TV. Still to come, President Bola Tinubu has directed the mandatory purchase of compressed natural gas-powered vehicles by all government ministries, departments, and agencies. But this comes as the federal government concludes plans to ensure marketers open compressed natural gas pumps and filling stations across the country. While this may signal an end to the high cost of fuel on the economy, a question that comes to mind would be whether or not Nigeria is ready for this revolution. A candid conversation on this with an economist, Adefolarin Olamilekan. Do join us again after this break. Welcome back from that break. You're watching News Analysis live on Politics and Business TV. The Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC, says Nigeria's oil output, excluding condensate, rose month on month by 4% to 1.28 million barrels per day in April 2024 from 1.23 million barrels per day in March 2024. OPEC, however, said that on a year-on-year basis, the nation's output rose to 1.28 million barrels per day in April 2024 from 999,000 barrels per day in the corresponding period of 2023. The Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, NUPRC, had presented a similar report stating that Nigeria's crude oil output in April rose marginally by 4% to 1.28 million barrels per day compared to 1.23 million barrels per day recorded in March 2024. But in its latest May monthly oil market report, OPEC put Nigeria's oil output, excluding condensate during the period, at 1.28 million barrels per day based on information obtained from official sources. However, according to secondary sources, crude oil output increased mainly in Congo and Iran, while production in Nigeria, Iraq, and Venezuela decreased. Now, President Bola Tinubu has directed the mandatory purchase of compressed natural gas-powered vehicles by all government ministries, departments, and agencies. According to media reports, the president said the directive is in furtherance of the country's effort to transition to cleaner energy, as CNG-enabled vehicles have been adjudged to produce lower emissions. It was gathered that the Minister of Finance, Wale Edun, recently took a tour of the factory where the CNG vehicles were being put together and promised that the vehicles will soon be rolled out. Addressing members of the Federal Executive Council, FEC, at the State House on Monday, Tinubu said there is no turning back in the energy reforms initiated by his administration, stressing that the move was also in line with his administration's commitment to ensure energy security, drive utility, and cut high fuel costs. In the meantime, the federal government has concluded plans to ensure marketers open compressed natural gas pumps and filling stations across the country. Consequently, the government has asked oil marketers to commence the process of establishing compressed natural gas points at their filling stations to increase consumer accessibility. These were disclosed by the chief executive of the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, Farouk Ahmed, during a meeting with key oil marketing companies yesterday in Abuja. During the discussion, which centered on issues of incessant scarcity of petroleum products in the country, Ahmed implored the major marketers to explore the availability of CNG in their gas stations, as President Bola Tinubu had directed that government vehicles to be purchased henceforth must be CNG powered. Ahmed, who described the push by the federal government to encourage the use of CNG as an alternative to petrol as a revolution, said the government was determined to reduce the burden of petrol on the economy. I'm being joined now by an economist who is also the lead researcher at Politics&BusinessTV.English, the person of Adefolarin Olamilekan. He joins us live via telephone this afternoon to discuss this. Good afternoon to you. Right, for a number of Nigerians, especially stakeholders, in the oil and gas sector, this is a step in the right direction. But then, does this directive signal an end to the suffering, by Nigerians generally, or this is targeted at a group of elites?
I push you. It's a loud one. Welcome. I would let us to refer our mind back to when this issue of gas was introduced to, even the cooking gas was introduced to, and all Nigerians embraced it. But the day after, the many challenges that Nigerians face after that particular introduction of such system is what we just hope we will not be faced as we go into CNG for transportation system in Nigeria.
Could you please run us through those challenges that Nigerians had expressed at yes?
I know at the point when cooking gas was introduced, cylinder was given to Nigerians for free, and it was very, very cheap at that point in time. And we are made to understand that Nigerians prefer natural gas, prime local consumption of cooking gas. But all of a sudden, we discovered that cooking gas is now being exported out of Nigeria, where cooking gas is also imported into Nigeria. And the excuse was that the government energy cannot meet local consumption, so they have to give room for importation of cooking gas. And before you know it, the price that was locally dictated at that initial stage was now being dictated by international price of gas. So it became a challenge that most Nigerians at that early stage don't cooking gas, and till now, many of them who don't cooking gas are not about to cooking gas again. Even the ones that are managing to take use of cooking gas are finding it difficult to even buy kg of cooking gas on following by Nigerian government that is so serious about exportation of the cooking gas given to local consumers. So that experience alone should be able to define what will happen in near future with this CNG that we're embracing at this point in time.
Well, one would say what an irony, especially for a country that is known for gas flaring. But Adefolarin, aside, the price, uncertain.
Price for meeting the translation system will now have a new list, in the sense that there is not a competitive rules of cooking, energy gas, as well as PMS. Now, the competition will now definitely want to bring down that by ensuring efficiency as well as effectiveness on the side of stakeholders and players in the two sectors. Because now, Nigerians will not will still be using PMS for their vehicle, then other Nigerians will still be using CNG for their vehicle. The conversion will take some time, but you also know that most of the items, the wares and items of CNG are also imported. So that will also play a role in the acceptance as well as the consumption of this CNG product in a long way. But what I see is that for Nigeria, this is a new development that we need to embrace. But we must be very, very careful about the future impact of it. Just like I gave an example of the cooking gas, that because of international pricing of it, it's giving a lot of Nigerians headache. And we should expect that it will also happen as we embrace CNG, because most of the kits are imported, they are not made in Nigeria, and the gas itself, even though we can produce here in Nigeria, we'll see here that it will be imported. And international price determination of some of these products lead to scarcity, and before you know it, the greed in this kind of system will crop up. Before you know it, there will be challenge of Nigeria accessing gas or accessing CNG gases for their vehicle as they embrace it.
Well, Olamilekan, another, concern for a number of Nigerians would be, how cheap, this revolution would be. We know, of course, sometime last year, we understand that some CNG conversion points had already been set up. And for some Nigerians who were privileged or opportune to visit some of those CNG stations to see how they can convert, their cars to CNG, to ensure that it can actually use compressed natural gas as opposed to fuel. They said the price when it comes to converting your car from using fuel to CNG is quite expensive. At some point in time we heard 200,000, 300,000, 600,000, and you name it. At the end of the day, it all boils down to the fact that this is something that is not going to be too realistic for an average Nigerian who is on the street. What are your thoughts on this?
I think the price aspect of the conversion is quite very high. I think the last one I checked, even on the one that government is doing, because we have a center here in Abuja at the Nigerian Institute of Transport Technology. They have a center there, and the price finding shows about 460,000 naira to convert. And it also depends on the size of the cylinder you are going to be putting in your vehicle, depending on the size. Now, the initial stage, see, the kit for me is not the kit for me is not the issue. Nigerians can quickly develop a model because around Nigeria now, different companies are already coming up to assemble plants and the rest of that. If they are going to have issue is the gas himself, the supply chain of the gas, because it is going to be internationally determined. Just take a look at PMS that we normally have a fluctuating price around. It is because it is internationally determined, and the government is not using local models to show price, to show up the price in a way down to eventually embrace this at the end of the day, finally, or they will dump it because they can easily get the kit, but the gas to sustain those vehicles the issue because just like we have problem with the PMS supply, whereby our refineries are not working, we may not have a refinery to the gas for us when because of the greed in the system, this set of people will be the players in that system may claim that they are importing the gas, and in determining the importation, they also use all manner of operational model pricing to determine the price. Before you know it, we'll be having the same challenge of scarcity of gas for CNG conversion buses or vehicles. But for me, it's all about this gas, the kit we produce even here in Nigeria, particularly
that when it comes to precautionary measures, we tend to treat such issues with, our kids, our gloves. How safe is this particular, rollout or a revolution, if you like? By that, I mean having CNG vehicles on the road, especially knowing that it's almost, a tall order for a Nigerian driver, be it a public transporter or a private car owner, to have a fire extinguisher in his or her car.
Hello?
Yes, are you there?
Yes, I'm there.
Yes, I'm asking that how much of a concern is it to you when you take a look at the precautionary measures, and how best can the government prioritize, safety measures with regards to this revolution?
I think it's very important that the safety measures have to be put in place. And again, from our own study of the vehicle being converted to gas, to CNG cars or CNG buses or CNG lorries, I think they are safe as well as what they call the safe aspect of the game because it's already there. But the main thing we need to just put cautionary measure is that the owners, because individuals who will be driving those cars, I think the measure they have to be taking is that just like we normally do in PM related vehicles, I think that's the same measure they need to take. Because for some time now we have been seeing lorries being driven by CNG gases, and they have been moving exclusively on our road. So what those lorry drivers don't do is that they have all the fire extinguisher in their vehicle, and they take precautionary measures not to be too close to flaming or ever striking of a fire altogether. So what I'm trying to point out that whoever is going to convert his vehicle to CNG model must also bear the safety measure not just on his head, but ensure that the vehicle has all the various instruments to withstand the pressure that may be coming from CNG, particularly heat. Get it? We must also put that into perspective. And
all right.
For the government just need to ensure that they have another rules and regulations for vehicles that will be engaging in such. Not saying one that will begin to ask them to pay taxes on it, but the one that will also encourage them to make use of the CNG buses. For me, I see this as a new novel in Nigerian Nigerian transportation system, which should go a long way to help us. But as I earlier pointed out, because the same problem that we are running away from the PMS in terms of pricing, we may also encounter it in CNG gases if we don't have the means of producing here in Nigeria. Okay,
let me jump in real quick, Adefolarin. We're about rounding up the conversation now. For you, you're concerned about the gas supply chain. You're also concerned about the pricing, template. But do you think the cost implication would be too much of a burden on the federal government?
Definitely. For now, I think the government is bearing the cost on themselves, as well as making sure that Nigerians really embrace the introduction of this CNG buses. But on the long run, the individual who want to convert their vehicle into CNG will continue to bear the brunt, because what the government is trying to do is to find a way to encourage citizens to embrace it. But on the long run, they may still have a way of abandoning it. But by the time they see that a lot of citizens have already embraced this system, then they may have to leave it. But government will not leave it entirely for private individuals to take to play on, because if they leave it, own re-engineering ways, whereby they are bringing the kit into the country and they are installing it for Nigeria. And I think they should continue that way and see how our institutions that are focused on engineering and technology to take it up there and begin to produce the kit here in Nigeria for Nigerian customers. Because once we are able to produce the kit, we're able to produce the gas, then we may not have problem with CNG conversion